Hello there and welcome to Good Morning Sri Lanka on the 27th of December. You're with me Harith and Mevan, and it's a fantastic day, Mevan, and we have a lot of very interesting stories coming up.
Yes, and also Harith, not forgetting that the cricket is on the way, and something interesting that you mentioned before the story, before the show rather, sorry, about a few parties, because this has been played in the MCG, and as we know, the MCG usually attracts more Sri Lankan supporters when we are playing rather than the Australians.
Indeed, if you remember, Mevan, the time when Malinga and Matthews had that wonderful partnership, it was at the MCG, and such a lot of support coming from there. And they have a very special party.
Okay.
The Umpire Hora party, not out.
Okay, right. Umpire Hora party?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm pretty sure they've got some cocktails lined up also along the lines. Those are the Sri Lankans who are hosting these parties in Melbourne, and let's hope that the cricket team fares well over the next 4 days. Now, coming into our first story for today, we have a story about a cat. Not just about one cat, but about cats competing in an international pageant. And this is in Israel, where they're having a competition within all the cats in the country.
It's the catwalk in its true form.
Yes, the cats taking the catwalk.
More than 100 pet felines took to the catwalk on Saturday to compete in an international cat pageant. About 100 different breeds, some brought from abroad, took part in the competition organised by New Israeli Cat Alliance. The organizer of the show said the judges examined each breed according to its external traits.
This competition is supposed to check first that the cats are to conformity with the standard. We have about 70 or 80 breeds that are recognized by the association. Each one do have a breed standard, that means criteria that we developed, that the ear size or ear shape.
Cats of all shapes and sizes were paraded on stage, competing for prizes in different categories. Among the competitions held in the event was the choosing of the king and queen of the cat, who will represent Israel in international competitions.
Big cat lovers. I have 12 cats on my garden. I feed them every day, 3 times a day, so I basically from 10 years old we have them.
Now Harith, I wonder why in Sri Lanka we never give so much attention to cats. We don't have cat shows. We have a lot of dog shows, and everyone's interested in dogs.
I don't know, maybe cats are not that pretty.
Okay, I don't know. But then again, also Israel and cats, I'm not trying to be cynical here, but okay, they might have a few similarities in terms of their
I think in fact there's so many similarities. Israel is arrogant. Israel is very dominant in whatever it does. It settles down wherever it's not supposed to settle down.
Okay, but also we have a lot of good things coming from Israel as well.
Of course.
And we took a look at their cat show also.
Yeah. Going on, Mevan, now something interesting that has been happening is not just the cats on the catwalk, but the most famous contest for women in the world, Miss Universe. The most beautiful woman in the universe was crowned very recently in the United States at Las Vegas, and it was Olivia Culpo, a 20-year-old. 20 years old.
20 years old. Okay.
Good for us, Mevan.
Well, let's take a look at that.
Miss USA was crowned Miss Universe 2012 on Wednesday after a pageant that saw some of the world's most beautiful women parade in bikinis and ball gowns and give their views on topics ranging from weight loss to the importance of speaking English. Olivia Culpo, 20, a brunette who plays a cello and is a spokeswoman for breast cancer awareness, was chosen by a 10-judge panel from 89 contestants representing countries ranging from India to Kosovo and Britain. Culpo, wearing a red long-sleeve dress for her final look, was the 8th winner from the United States in the contest's 60-year history and the first Miss USA to take the title since 1997. Miss Philippines 23-year-old Janie Tugonon was a runner-up, and Miss Venezuela Irene Sofia Esa Quintero came in third after the top 5 answered brief questions posed by the judges. Culpo from Rhode Island takes the place of last year's winner Leila Lopez, who was the first ever Miss Universe from Angola. After reaching the top 5, Culpo was asked to name one thing she would never do again. "Picking on my siblings growing up," she replied. The contest, owned jointly by businessman Donald Trump and NBC Network, held a moment of silence for the 20 children and 6 staff gunned down at an elementary school in Newton, Connecticut on the 14th of December.
Congratulations to Olivia Kilper from USA, but from Sri Lanka we had the beautiful Sabrina Hurft who participated, and she was placed 4th in the national costume competition as well, and she was making a lot of heads turn and a lot of people talk as well, so good for her.
Okay, that's definitely good news. I guess the national costume of Sri Lanka, I'm assuming, I didn't see that, but I'm assuming she was wearing a sari, and that looks good.
No, in fact, it was a dress with a very elaborate some headwear with the feathers and I think the usual tradition of the peacock being portrayed on in the Sri Lankan sense. So interesting line of fashion there for Sri Lanka, and good news.
I know. Right about now, let's take a quick break, but we'll be back. Don't go anywhere. And good morning, Sri Lanka.
Hello there and welcome back to Good Morning Sri Lanka on the 27th of December. You are with me here, Harit and Mevan. Mevan, recently I heard that you were walking near a bus and you had a bit of
I know, I was telling Harit this story, okay? Now our next video clip is about a policy that's been implemented, is going to be implemented in Myanmar, where they're trying to ban spitting in public. Now this is an interesting story. I'm not trying to, ruin your morning or anything like that, but I was just driving along and the vehicle in front, it was a van, and the passenger who was traveling, I think, was feeling sick or something, so he put down the shutter and he was feeling sick, so he put his head down, yes, and vomited. But right next to it was a bus parked, and the bus driver just put his shutter is always down, but then yes, he just spat a load of beetle, and that's not something that you want to imagine in the morning, but it was a funny story, and I guess this is a good policy to be implemented in Sri Lanka as well.
It's a great thing. I mean, they are considering such things because it's important for people in the public. I mean, when we go out in the public and these kinds of things happen, you step into a puddle of beetle.
Not very nice. But let's take a look at Myanmar, the policy of looking to ban spitting in public.
A campaign to ban spitting in public has been gaining popularity in Myanmar, where the sight of people chewing and spitting betel nuts is common, leaving a red stain wherever they choose to aim. The spitting ban was proposed in late August by Union Solidarity and Development Party member Moon Tu. He sits on the Parliamentary Committee for Population and Social Development and says the ban would keep the streets of Myanmar clean. What I want is, in our country, there are zones like no smoking, no littering and no honking zones. We should have no betel nut spitting zone. I think that will be more suitable if we approach it like this, he said. He said many buildings and public property had been damaged with red stains of betel nut spit. Mint Thu also suggested that betel nut sellers should provide cups or plastic bags for their customers to spit in. Mama Phew has been selling betel nuts for nearly 20 years and says she supports a ban on spitting, but not on betel nuts themselves. Most of the people who sell betel nuts sell them for their household income. Betel chewing has existed for a long time, since the time of Myanmar kings. If they spit the betel nuts with discipline, then there will be no issues, she said. 56-year-old Ye Mint has been chewing betel nuts for 16 years. He said he's not comfortable with kicking the habit but supports the ban. If they find someone who spits without caring, without discipline, this is a very good system.
There we go. But then again, Harit, betel is also, very much integrated into our tradition and history. And as one of the people who was being interviewed said, it's difficult to give up a habit like that. But I guess you should be a bit more disciplined, especially in public places. Now, do you think that a policy like this is going to work in Sri Lanka?
It's similar to the law that we had that to ban smoking in public. It's a bit hard to enforce, but I think at the end of the day, it won't reduce the people chewing betel. But at the end of the day, if they chew their betel, they spit it into a drain. Or
because the policy of no smoking in public areas is very efficient. We don't get people smoking in the public transport.
And these are public places. People walk by. I mean, the day you step onto a chewing gum or you step onto a puddle of spit, you will realize that you shouldn't be doing the same thing.
True enough, definitely. Next story, Harit, is about an interesting artist or rather an art lover, isn't it?
Of course, Mehman, coming from the days of the Holocaust, we all know that the Jewish people were hated by the Nazis those days because they were talented.
Yeah.
And here we have an art collection, a collection of art, which has been collected by certain Jewish dentists who fled during the Nazi occupation. And let's have a look at that story.
Rare, wondrous and one-of-a-kind, some of these posters have not been seen in more than a century, and soon they will be sold at auction. The collection of more than 4,300 posters once belonged to Hans Stasch, a Jewish dentist who fled Nazi Germany.
The room we're sitting in contains about 50 posters representing a very tiny sampling from the more than 4,300 posters that constitute the Dr. Hans Sachs poster collection, widely considered the finest collection of posters in the world. Dr. Sachs, when a very young man, began collecting posters in 1896 in what constituted the very first collection of posters in existence. He was the first person to sort of recognize that posters were being created by some of the world's finest artists, and whether they were simply beautiful, promoting some upcoming performer at a cabaret, or taking a political view, or urging people to travel to some distant land, they were compelling. You can see the range from joyful, beautiful posters to very powerful political statements. Understand that posters were created as temporary things, ephemeral objects that were designed to be plastered on a wall and survive the weather for 6 weeks or 7 weeks, to announce that some cabaret singer was appearing locally or some product was recently made available. No one ever imagined that here we are, in some cases 120 years later, and the posters still survived, which is remarkable in itself, but made even more so by virtue of when you think that not only did these survive in Dr. Sachs's hands, but then in the hands of the Nazis, and eventually in the hands of a museum. So they really have gone through a great deal.
Widely considered the first collection of posters in the world, Dr. Sachs, when a very young man, began collecting the posters in 1896 in what constituted the very first collection of posters in existence. He was the first person to sort of recognize that posters were being created by some of the world's finest artists, and whether they were simply beautiful, promoting some upcoming performer at a cabaret, or taking a political view or urging people to travel to some distant land, they were compelling, said Arnold Attiger, the president of Gmsl Auction House in New York.
There we have it, 4,300 posters collected by the then young Dr. Hans Sachs, a Jewish dentist, and a very interesting story about that exhibition to happen. Of course, talking about occupation and all that, there is another country which is into occupation, that is China.
I know, and China and Taiwan, even recently, the struggle for an independent Taiwan was, there was a lovely example of it. I wouldn't say lovely, it's definitely not good, because there was a person who committed suicide, isn't it?
Yes, it has been happening quite often, Mevan, where the young people from Taiwan set fire to themselves in protest about the occupation of China. And here we have the Chinese who have made a little negligent mistake in one stamp.
A big one, I would say, because now they have issued a stamp which have obviously been withdrawn as soon as it reached the public. But this one, the faulty Chinese stamp, depicts cultural revolution workers rallying beneath a red China without Taiwan. The map of China without Taiwan. And apparently an unidentified buyer has snatched a block of 4 rare stamps, and they're priced at $816,000 US. Now, if you were a stamp collector, you definitely want to get your hands on that one, but of course there are only 4, the rest have been collected and destroyed. But let's see what that's all about.